put a computer in there and compress it, you're still to the point where you need 45 million numbers a second, okay, that you can then use to describe full motion video. Voice is a little better, but not much. If you want to describe a voice digitally, you have to sample the voice and create 8,000 numbers a second that actually describe the power and the intensity of your voice so that it can be recreated after it's communicated to the other end. So it takes tremendous bandwidth to create voice, to create images. Data itself, just because of its sheer volume of information, can also take tremendous bandwidth. So partly in response to that, we have built in this nation about 250,000 miles of fiber optic network. In that, we're also still building about 1,300 miles a day of fiber optic network. But the problem is that the fiber optics don't go into individual homes, they don't go into all businesses. The fiber optics terminate at various locations, places that are called points of presence and POPs. The real problem in realizing this potential, this third wave potential of creating an environment where distance and location no longer matters for business and education is what they call the last mile problem. How do you get the communications bandwidth, the speed of the communications network into individual homes and into small businesses, especially in rural Oklahoma, okay, so that you can reach out to Saudi Arabia. You can do video conferencing with a huge amount of bandwidth it requires, and you can run the internet with its video, and you can do the services that we were talking about in Iowa. You can connect the schools, and you can connect the police stations, and you can spend, what do they spend, $160 million doing that? Yeah, it was North Carolina spent $160 million just in these major points of presence. But how do you really carry this into the homes and the small businesses in rural Oklahoma? And one of the answers to that is one of the businesses that the Williams Companies is in, and that's the development of the new wireless technologies. Wireless has the potential of having every bit the information carrying capacity of fiber. It involves some new technologies, some new regulations that is occurring, such things as the personal communication services, as satellites, as the wireless cable. These are very, very high frequency radios that can carry a great deal of data, and they carry it digitally, so you actually get the quality of service that is every bit as equal to wire lines at about 1/10 the cost. And one of the things that's going to be spurring the development continued development of this technology is deregulation. The last year, both the House and the Senate passed a bill that's going to greatly modify, if not totally eliminate, the Communications Act of 1934. It's going to deregulate the local inter-exchange carriers. You may recall back in the 80s, they deregulated long-distance carriers. This occurred when new technology developments like microwave actually eliminated the so-called natural monopoly of copper in the ground, and it allowed MCI and eventually others like Welltel to go into competition against AT&T. This is why you now get all these phone calls in the middle of the night, and why your long-distance rates have gone down 60%, in the last 10 years, with a greatly enhanced amount of use and multitude of services. Well, they did not deregulate local exchange. They deregulated was the ability to go between, in a long distance, to go between the actual service areas that they call LATAs, but inside these 7 major service areas in the United States, they still regulate the companies that do business there. They also prevented, the regulations created artificial boundaries, and there were separate regulatory agencies for broadcast and for video, and separate agencies for voice, and they regulated separately and kept the people who were carrying the long-distance service from those that were carrying local service. And all of those have become somewhat unnatural. All of it now is numbers, all of it's data. It's the communication networks don't know a difference. So that has become a somewhat artificial distinction. Plus it has become new technologies are actually undercutting both those distinctions and the need for that kind of regulation. One of them has been cable. Cable reaches 63% of American homes. Cable is capable of, with some additional technology, of carrying voice, but they can't do so. So what this deregulation bill, once it gets into compromise between the Senate and the House in September, that's passed by the end of the year, if it's done correctly, what it's going to do is it's going to allow long-distance companies to get into the local exchange business, local exchange companies to get in long distance, cable companies can now start to carry voice, and it's going to open up a plethora of new businesses and new opportunities. Our company is looking at using the wireless arena to actually supplant the 65 million tons of copper that's in the ground today. That's now the only way to carry data from someone's house or small business to a long-distance fiber optic carrier. Rurally speaking, it costs, what, 30 times as much to connect one house to one of these central communication nodes. And then when they do connect it, you're only connected by 2 little copper wires that allow you to carry about 128,000 characters a second, which is still far less than what's needed for video. But what wireless does is it just jumps over the whole need of other companies coming into the local exchange business. They don't have to plant this expensive copper, along right-of-ways and in the ground. They can just put up rather inexpensive networks of radios. And by doing so, you can increase the bandwidth and decrease the cost, and you can actually start to provide some very high bandwidth communication capabilities in many remote areas. You will see it occurring, and it is already occurring in the major cities. They're building these networks of digital data for both voice and video, and you'll see that growing, I think, in the next 5 or 6 years into the more remote areas. But it's going to have, I think, a remarkable opportunity for us here in central Oklahoma. We're no longer restricted to the extremely prohibitive way of building very wide bandwidth wires into everybody's home and small business. Okay? We'll be able to build very, very wide bandwidth wireless communication links much quicker and much cheaper. And you're going to start to see a plethora of products out personally for you and for your computer within just the next few years. So I think that's our presentation. The Williams Companies is very pleased to be able to be here today and talk with you about some of the products we have and some of the services we have. That's going to be very pertinent, I think, to economic development and education in Oklahoma. So if you have any questions, I can pass the microphone around to anyone who's here. Yes. I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
In 93 and 94, the government focused on telecommunications. Where are we compared to Iowa?
Okay. She asked, we focused in Oklahoma on telecommunications in 93 and 94, and she asked, where are we in relation to Iowa? And that's a good question.
Well, I don't know if I can answer it quite fully. Larry's take was kind of interesting. I meant to mention that I thought it should be retitled Alice in Utopia, or Alice in Wonderland even, perhaps. We are very fortunate in Oklahoma in some ways. We don't have that optical fiber infrastructure that exists in Iowa and in North Carolina today to all of the counties and all of the places that they have made the commitment to do it. And by the way, in Iowa, the state owns the network. They have paid for it and they have built it. In North Carolina, they look at that network as a sort of an information shopping mall. And all of North Carolina's telephone companies have participated in building that. They jointly shared the expense of building that, and the state is the major tenant in the mall, if you will. And then others will come and they'll pay their own share of being on the network. So it works a little differently there. What I was going to say about Oklahoma, and particularly the thing that has driven these networks has been educational equity. Those have been the two primary drivers, and a lot of other benefits that have fallen out from it in terms of economic development and telemedicine and all those other things. But the primary drivers have been educational equity in both of those cases. And I'm sure that's an issue in Oklahoma, although I'm not as well informed on that here as I probably ought to be. But I have been fortunate in that I'm on the advisory board of the Oklahoma State University Institute for Telecommunications, and it is one of the nation's premier distance learning facilities. I mean, those guys have a huge amount of experience in distance learning, and they know a lot about it. I mean, so we have some very informed people in the state, and we have certainly a lot of technologists in the state. It's a question of developing a statewide will to do it, to make it happen. That's what I meant when I was saying I hope that this little meeting here can ignite a spark so that we can light up the lights. That's the best answer I can give you for now.
In Iowa, you said the state has built the network or fiber optic.
Yes, sir, the state owns the network in Iowa.
Is that equally available, or what's the public-private policy?
Well, I'm not familiar with all the intricacies of exactly how this works, but Tammy told me that that since they've lighted the armories, that the citizens can go get a classroom from the armory for $5 and get a connection established for $5. So for $10, they can be sitting there in a teleconference situation for distance learning or whatever the application might be.
Well, more specific,
Town hall or something like that, and they do use it for town hall meetings.
what's the public policy for private universities or criminals and that? The private for profit organizations, do they share at no cost? Do they get different costs? How does that work?
The private, I think it's different in Iowa and in North Carolina. And it's my understanding there has been no mention in any of the things that I've read about Iowa that talk about the commercial entities participating in this in Iowa. In North Carolina, there is discussion about commercial entities participating. They do it at their own expense. And they said in North Carolina the current cost of setting up a connection facility, which includes a teleconference room, runs something in the neighborhood of $70,000 to $120,000.
Well,
That answer the question?
in North Carolina, who built the infrastructure?
The telephone companies. And as a matter of fact, most of it was already in place. I mean, the main backbone of it, the telephone companies had already built anyway. Southwestern Bell in Oklahoma and GTE both have extensive fiber, and I know that some of the independent telephone companies do as well. And where they don't have it, they're quickly building it. The question is, though, I mean, the fiber is between the central offices, but to get the kind of speed you need to get that to a premises where it's going to be used. And that's the last mile that Jim was talking about that really has been a little bit of a problem to solve. Is that it?
Could we give the Williams Company people a hand? To talk a little bit more about Iowa, there is also a private entity in Iowa that's owned by telephone companies called Iowa Network Services. So not only does the state have facilities that go to every county seat of every school, but there's also a private entity called Iowa Network Services that has fiber optics. So in the state of Iowa, they have all kinds of glass, as we say, in the ground. Kansas is set up, and it is, like our network, is owned by 25 independent telephone companies, so it's a lot of the same. We actually rent or lease space, I guess you'd say, on our network for schools, and a lot of the independent telephone companies and Southwestern Bell and a lot of different companies have gotten together to set our networks up. One thing is another area that Jim had touched on that I think is real important is the cable providers. Every 15 years, the federal law states that that each cable provider with the city that they're in has to re-evaluate their contract. And at this time, a lot of cable providers are providing fiber optic cable, and it's not only just to make your television or give you more channels, it's also they're looking at the possibility of becoming local access providers or providers to the curb, as Jim was saying. So that's a whole other area that they can look at. Our next presentation are going to be attorneys on the wire. Susan Lyons is with Gable and Gottwalls. She is a legal administrator who's been with the law firm of Gable and Gottwalls for the past 11 years. She has worked in the legal field for over 20 years. She is the administrator of 2 Novell networks, one in their Tulsa office and also one in their Oklahoma City office, as well as overseeing their AT&T Definity G3V1 phone system and Inunity Audix, she'll clean me up, but the voicemail system. There are 38 attorneys in Gable and Gotwells, and they're based in Tulsa for the last 50 years. So I'll turn it over to Susan.
When they first asked me to come speak, my question was, what kind of things do you want to hear about attorney's office? And I guess it actually should have been, does anyone want to hear anything about what attorneys are doing, and if so, why? A lot of the legal offices are now automated. We've heard from a lot of the big companies about what they're doing, about what's available, all sorts of different things you can do, but how does a smaller company get started on something like this? How do you get involved? How do you get things going for those of us who have slightly less than an unlimited budget? There's a lot of mistakes that you can avoid when you're getting ready to automate. You need to really sit down and analyze what it is, what's the end product, what is it that you want. A lot of this stuff is for law offices, but a lot of it applies to just regular businesses. And a lot of these mistakes were ones that our law firm and other law firms know by personal experience. One of the first things that you should do when you're getting ready to automate is analyze what it is you want. What do you want to do? What do you think you want to do? The answer may be as simple as a communications program and a modem attached to your PC. It may be as complicated as a full-blown network and a separate comm server. Imprudent decision-making regarding automation can be very costly, either underbuying or overbuying. Buying software and hardware designed for a larger or smaller firm is a big mistake. If you aren't fairly literate in computers, be careful about being misled by poorly informed or outright dishonest salespeople. A company may sell an accounting package to a 19-attorney firm and then turn around and sell the same package to a sole proprietor. They don't work the same. You've really got to analyze what it is you want, what your growth potential is, what you expect to do with it. One of your best defenses on something like this is to hire an experienced law office automation consultant or any automation consultant. The hourly fees you pay to a person like this are small in comparison to the costly mistakes that you can make when you're getting ready to automate. Second thing that you should do or should not do is fail to consider cost effectiveness as opposed to bottom line price. Because computer equipment can be a significant outlay of precious cash, firms sometimes fixate on the bottom line rather than what they expect to get out of it. For example, a simple litigation support package might cost $1,000. That seems like a lot of money just for a piece of software, not including any hardware to run it on for a small firm. But if you compare that cost to what it may cost you to hire another paralegal to run a case, it's very insignificant. It can make a lot of difference. Figure out what it is that software or that hardware, any purchase is going to do for you. Too little, too late. Big mistake. You simply cannot afford to ignore developments that might streamline your business. Attorneys shouldn't, or don't, I say that, they shouldn't ignore new developments in the law, nor can they ignore developments in the practice of law. Neither can any other business. You've got to look at how you can make your business more efficient. Another big mistake is failing to budget for computer upgrades and repair. Warranty periods when you first buy a computer seem like they're going to last forever. They go away extremely fast. And the more you use your equipment, the more uses you will find for it. There's always some new toy, something that you can do, a new piece of software that's exactly what you need. Again, make sure you consider the cost effectiveness of that purchase. Maybe it's well worth it, but just make sure you analyze it. Buying too much or too little if you're going to network. Too small a network is almost as bad a mistake as too big a network. If you put in a network and you discover it's too small, it's possible that very little of that equipment will be usable other than for personal PCs. And some of it may not be usable at all. Then again, buying too much network can be a very expensive mistake. Not only is it expensive to put in, but they're more expensive to operate, both in terms of personnel to run the network and just the network itself. Again, a consultant can save you a lot of money on that. One of the biggest mistakes that I find that companies make is failing to train their staff and their attorneys, all of their personnel. You've just spent a lot of money on a good computer network. It's right-sized, everything works, it's running smoothly. Does everybody know how to use it and what's on it? You need to spend a good part of your budget training the people on the software programs, on the hardware programs. Get some people that are innovative and on other ways to use it. We have purchased a lot of software programs and ended up not using them for the original intended purposes, but maybe somebody says, you know, if we just change this and if we just do that, they work great for something else. So failing to properly train your people is a big mistake on when you're buying a computer network.
It seems like most offices have gone to automated work processing. That doesn't appear to be a problem in most legal offices. Terry Olson is a research analyst for the Law Office Management Advisory Service.
And it seemed to me that her comment on an office that's still bumping along using computers solely for basic word processing is going to fall rapidly behind. That's true. You cannot just produce documents. You have to have the ability to do all sorts of things on your computers, to use them in multiple ways. Otherwise, the money that you spent just on even on a single PC may be being wasted. So what other ways can you use the PC that you've already bought?
There's a lot of ways. One of your best resources,
One of your best resources is your own, the documents that you've created, your own database, and things that you can do with that. In the word processing field, a lot of people are now creating their own forms, using merged documents, setting up templates. You can save yourself and your clients a lot of money. That's where people who are not in the legal field also benefits. If somebody's going to have contact with an attorney at some time in their life, and if that attorney has automated and can do the same project for you a lot faster, you're going to save money because attorneys charge by the hour. Macros. Macros is something I know that they teach here in word processing in their departments. It's like writing your own little mini programs. They work great. Stuff like that can save attorneys and secretaries major amount of times. Document management programs. We use a document management program called Soft Solutions. There's a number of them out there. PC Docs is another one. They're not just for law offices. They're for organizing documents that you've created. Soft Solutions allowed us to customize a lot of the fields. We can search all of our document database, which is very large when you figure out how much paper 38 different attorneys can produce. We can sort them by client, by matter, by document type, by subject. We can search our computer system full text. We can look through everything and find out if any other attorney, since we've automated, and even previously because we scanned in a lot of our old documents just to get them on the database, has ever done a certain type of case. We can look for keywords on our computer system. It's something that really speeds up. There's no reason to reinvent the wheel twice. If we were doing some work for an oil company on a take or pay contract,
We can just go into our computer system. Any secretary, any attorney can go in, sit down and search for the words take or pay and find out any memos, anything that we've done that is on the database that says take or pay. So document management programs can be used in the law offices for things like that, but they can also be used in other businesses for other applications. Database programs. Like I said before, your in-house, your own database is one of your best assets. The work that you've already done, if you can draw on it and use it again and save yourself some time and your clients some money, it's a great deal. We've got probably 4 or 5 different database programs on our computer system. Some of them are flat databases, just for information, for Rolodexes, for, to fill in fields, to fill in forms and stuff like that. And relational databases, excuse me, when we're working on a major case and searching for issues. These database programs come in all sorts of price ranges. You can get very simple ones that are inexpensive that you can customize to your own specifications, and you can get some very specialized ones that are for legal fields and for other fields also. There are a lot of database services available to you. Most of the major legal publishers now put out their books on CD-ROM. It's an easy and reasonably inexpensive way to get in some information. Rather than having the space requirements that a huge law library takes up, you can get it on CD-ROM. Now, the cost doesn't save you a lot. The publishers have not lowered their price on the CD-ROM. It's the same price as buying the books, but at least you don't have the floor space requirements. Westlaw is an online service to do legal research. Westlaw is something that we use a lot. Attorneys have it available at their desktop computers. There's also a specified Westlaw computer in the library that anyone can go down and sit at and do their research using keywords. Lexis is a lot like Westlaw. We use Westlaw because we use a lot of the West publications. Information America. You can get all sorts of corporate information. We use it mostly for things like finding out company names, addresses, service agents, things like that. But there's a huge amount of information on Information America. And none of these services are terribly expensive. Westlaw and Lexis both charge by the minute, but they will provide you the software and frequently a computer to use for free. So if you're cautious about when you go in, when you log on to the computer, you know what you're looking for and you're not just messing around like going out and surfing the internet. If you surf on Westlaw, it can cost either you or your client a bundle of money. But if you know what you're looking for, the service comes back very quickly. County land records. Tulsa County land records you can get online. We do a lot of real estate work, and rather than have an attorney or a paralegal walk over to the courthouse, go into the land records, look it up, see who owns the property, what the legal description is, what the taxes they paid last year, what the assessed value, anything like that. We have a computer upstairs that is connected directly to Tulsa County. We just log on, put in a legal description, put in an address, put in an owner, whatever information you may know, and you can pull up all the information on that piece of property. It's something that rather than taking 30 or 45 minutes in an attorney's time to go over and find out the information, may take 3 or 4 minutes. It's a great deal. Court records are also, you can be online. I don't know how many of the other courts in Oklahoma are online, but I know the bankruptcy court is online. They will provide you with a program called Pacer that is very inexpensive, and you can go from your computer with a modem, connect up to the records, look up cases, look up information. It's another very inexpensive way to get your research done. Other libraries. There are a lot of libraries that are online. We specifically connect to the TU Law Library. We can go in. We have our own law library, and it's very large for a private law firm. But there's no way you can have everything. There's no way you can keep every decision, every treatise, everything in your own library. But we can go up to a computer, log into the TU Law Library, see if they have the document that we are looking for, And then if we want a hard copy, we can send someone over. At least saves a separate trip for someone to go over and get it. Those are all fairly inexpensive when you're talking about what legal fees normally cost, ways to get the information you're looking for. One of the best things that you can do too, in a legal business or any other, is provide remote communications back into your own network. We can save a lot of time, we can get a lot of information. We have our inter-office email between the two offices that we have and within our offices. If you all are a lot like me, you'll wake up in the middle of the night when you've got a lot of projects going, you think of something and you think, God, tomorrow morning I've got to remember to tell so-and-so to do this. It's, you know, I've got to get a hold of them first thing. You know, you get up, you may have forgotten, or you waste a lot of time, keep calling, you can't get them. We can log on from our home. All of the people that have home computers have access that you can log into our computer network, send email to somebody, it's there waiting for them, there's a flash on their screen when they come on in the morning that tells them they have email or voicemail. We also have voicemail. And get the information to them fast. The faster you get the information to people, that's kind of what we're looking for, is to get the information to our clients, to other attorneys, to everyone as fast as possible. In a legal environment, your costs are by time, and the faster it is, the cheaper it is for everybody. And I do our remote, a lot of my network maintenance, I run from my home computer at night or on weekends. I can be out pulling weeds in my garden and still be running some major programs on the computer and watching what's going on. So things like that are, without going into major expense, are things that companies can do to begin to automate their law offices or other offices. Now then, a lot of the law offices and other offices, and we've heard some stuff already this morning about people getting on internet and World Wide Web. Marshall Dyer is an attorney in Broken Arrow who is going to talk to you all about attorneys on the wire with internet and World Wide Web. Anybody got any questions about anything? Thank you very much.
We're going to need a little bit of time to set up for Marshall's presentation. Speaker Glenn Johnson's office today. She's joining us, and she agreed to do maybe kind of a 5-minute briefing on the status of the WinNet system. So I'll let her do that while we're setting up for Marshall's presentation.
Hi. Again, I don't have a presentation prepared for you, so kind of just off the cuff, I'm going to try to give you a brief update on history and update on where legislatively we stand with developing a statewide network. I know that question was asked earlier. And there again, I'm not sure of all my dates, but I'll try to give you at least a chronological history of what has happened in the last couple of years. Approximately 2 or 3 years ago, the legislature approved a bond issue. It was called the Higher Ed Bond Issue, which the voters voted on and passed. As you remember, it probably funded several projects, and one of the, in the bond issue, approximately $14 million was allocated for expenditure for telecommunications. That money was actually appropriated to the Office of State Finance, but it couldn't be expended without recommendation of a legislatively created body called the State Telecommunications and State Data Processing and Telecommunications Advisory Committee. After the money was, the voters approved that, the bond issue, and the money was appropriated, the committee began meeting on how to expend this money. They asked for proposals from the different state agencies on projects to use or to fund through this money, and it came back there with all the proposals. There were approximately about $30 million worth of projects which all the different state agencies wanted to try to do with this money. So we quickly learned that although $14 million sounded like a lot of money to fund telecommunications projects, it wasn't a lot. So the committee started looking at ways that they could leverage that $14 million to the best use, and also, again, there was more of an emphasis on developing a statewide network. So the committee began studying that. During that period, and I will mention at that point, the committee was composed of 2 legislators and representatives from several of the state agencies. During that time, the composition of the committee was changed to add a few, a total of 6 legislators, and a few more of the state agencies were added onto it. And also, it required any expenditure of the money to be approved by the Contingency Review Board, which is a board composed of the governor, speaker, and the president pro tem. Sometime in the summer of '94, last year, the regions, higher ed regions proposed development of a network called OneNet, which is building off their existing network, the educational telecommunications network that they currently operate and own. I believe later in the afternoon, Keith Wright from the Regents office will explain a little bit more probably about the technically how OneNet will operate. But the committee looked at the proposal and agreed that that was one of the best ways to expend $14 million. We could build off the existing network and develop hub sites around the state, which there again could be used to complete, as we've heard, the last mile and could connect to schools and homes around the state. So with the work of the regions and the Office of State Finance and several of the members of the committee began looking at the best way to do that. Currently, what has happened is we put out the regions and OSF have put out RFPs on the equipment to install the hub sites. The committee has approved expenditure of approximately $6.5 million to install those hub sites. The committee voted on that approximately about end of May and June, and currently we're waiting on the CRB board to meet to approve that recommendation before the bids can actually be accepted and work on actually installing the hub sites can be started. We also are looking at expending some of the money to build a fiber optic link, which we call a backbone between Tulsa and Oklahoma City. That is going out in a separate RFP, and we're currently working on details of working out that RFP. The timeline they're looking at is in the next month, having that RFP out, and then they'll come back and the committee will look at the bids and hopefully have that approved in the next month or so. And then there was another separate RFP also on the last mile service, which again they hope to have completed and the committee to vote on within the next month or so. And again, all these, it has to go through several stages, but after the committee approves it, then again the CRB has to meet and approve that also. I believe, I don't know if Keith will get into that, but the timeline they're looking at now is to have the hub sites up and running by December. So at that point, there'll still be some time to build the links, doing the last mile service and that type of thing, but they're hoping within a year we'll have that up and running. There's no question.
Where are the 6 hubs?
There's approximately 32 hubs across the state. They're geographically distributed across the state. And I'm assuming Keith will probably maybe give you an overview of those, but what the committee did or actually all the engineering technology people from the Regents office and OSF got together and they looked at what existing fiber there was in the ground. Most of the hub sites are located either at higher education institutions or hotels and centers. But they looked at just engineering and the best way to lay out those hub sites, but they are pretty much geographically distributed throughout the state. So I know there's one located at Carlisle Junior College in the southeast part of the state, all the way to where there's Panhandle to cover the Panhandle in that part of the state. So what we're hoping that way, the idea behind having the hub sites is in the last mile, like school districts could hook into that hub site, and their line charges will not be as much took into it as if they had from all the way to Oklahoma City to hook into it. And that's another piece of the whole plan, or what we're working on, is to, and part of the bid for last mile service is to get a tariff rate on the last mile service for school districts and governmental entities. It'll probably, it's looking at like a set rate, monthly rate for those types of entities.
Thank you. The next presenter is Marshall Dyer. He's a graduate of the University of Tulsa College of Law, and he started practice in '89, and again he's in general practice with his father in Broken Arrow. He also has been a lead instructor for the legal assistant program at Rogers State College in Claremore. From looking at his bio here, he looks like he's the online lawyer for the state of Oklahoma, I think. He is on Lawyer Online from Access America, and I think he'll go ahead and give us more information about that. He did get his first issue on cyberspace and law in February of 1995. I'd like to introduce Marshall Dyer.
Thank you, I appreciate it. The first time I was ever introduced on a college campus, I was at Rogers State College, starting the legal assistant program, and the college president made a specific point of introducing me, having me stand up, told them what a great job I was doing recruiting students. By this point, of course, the buttons on the shirt were just about to pop off. When we took a break, somebody came over and said, "Excuse me, are you Marshall Dyer?" And I said, "Yes." He said, "Well, I think you ought to tell you, your fly's open." And he was right. So I want to thank the organizers for providing this nice wide podium. And what I wanted to talk about is basically broken into two different areas.
Marshall, could you hold a little closer to your mouth?
I've never been accused of not talking loud enough. You can't hear me? You can't? You missed the joke? Oh, my great opener. Okay, is that any bit? See, now you got me. That's okay. All right. I want to talk to you basically in two different areas. First of all, the organizers have really provided a tremendous facility for me to be able to show you some things that words just really cannot describe. If you've never been on the World Wide Web, I'm going to be able to show you some things and what can be done on the World Wide Web. As a courtesy to the organizers, I won't mention the number of copyright laws we probably violated transferring this stuff over. First of all, I certainly don't want to insult the intelligence of anyone who is here, but I do know that several people who are very interested in seeing what they can do on the internet and the World Wide Web and seeing what it can do for them, basically their eyes tend to kind of glaze over because they know what some of the potential is, they just don't know what they need to do. And when you ask somebody, you'll get a stock answer such as, well, you need an interface with the TCP/IP stack and the server side. And about that time, the eyes glaze over, and no one ever really knows what that means. Even the person explaining it doesn't really know what it means. There are three basic levels what are called levels of connectivity to the internet. The level 1 is basically what's called your dial-up. That's your major online service. That's your America Online, CompuServe, Genie, Prodigy. The basic thing of a level 1 provider is they basically make it a no-brainer. Now, you don't have full access to the internet or the World Wide Web. You have to use the software that they provide, and you have to use the process that they provide. So when you sign up for America Online, you call America Online, you say, I want to sign up. They send you a disk, you put it in the slot, you install it, and then you follow their directions, A, B, C, D, and you get to where you want to go. Level 2 is basically what's called the SLIP, S-L-I-P, or the PPP, and I'm still childish enough that I don't like saying that, so I call it a triple P or a trippy for short. And that is basically where you choose a local internet provider, and I understand Mike Lester with Galaxy Star Systems is going to be here later. He's a local Tulsa internet provider. I don't use Mike's service. Please don't tell him I said that, because it's a very competitive market, and if he tells you that I told you, if you tell him that I told you that, he's going to be more upset. But Mike is a fantastic guy and has actually helped me with a couple of projects that I've had working. And in fact, with some recent Oklahoma legislation, he made it possible for me to put a web petition on my pages by routing mail through his server. So he is really a tremendous individual. With the level 2, you basically will sign up with a local access provider or someone who's national and provides 800 numbers, like Webcom is one that does it. We have 2 or 3 in Tulsa that provide SLIP and triple P accounts. The advantage here is you get to choose your own software. You get to pick what email program you use. You get to pick what FTP program you use. And I know you don't know what that means, or you might not. I'll tell you what that means. We'll get into that just briefly. But this is where people get confused, and this is where people flock to America Online, and flock to Genie, and flock to Prodigy, and all this sort of stuff. Now, at one time, the level 1 providers were actually cheaper than the level 2, but because of competition, level 2 is really, in a lot of cases, cheaper now. In order to establish a level 2 connection, you basically need to have an account with an internet provider. Now, on your computer, here's what you're going to need. You're going to need what's called a TCP/IP stack. There's a slash between the TCP and the IP. It's called a TCP/IP stack. Now, all you need to know about that, really, and this is oversimplifying, but this is basically an interpreter. Consider the many different types of computers. There are Macintoshes, there are Windows operating environments, there are DOS operating environments, there is the Unix operating environment, but they all interconnect on the internet. How do they do that? They do that with this interpreter that is on your computer called the TCP/IP stack. You start that first before you log on to your system. In fact, it's the TCP program that actually logs you on. So when you want to do something, if you want to send email, you have to have your TCP program running. You start your email program, compose your email, send it through the TCP program on your computer, where it will then go through your modem line, it will go to the internet provider, in the language that the internet provider will understand, called the IP, or Internet Protocol language. And at that point, when you get your results back, your TCP program there on your computer will interpret what's in the IP language into your computer's language. So the first thing you need is this TCP program. They're free. You can get them in a lot of places. The most popular one's called TCP Man, for TCP Manager, and it's available everywhere. It is free. You can get it online just about anywhere. The level 3 is your dedicated line. Now that's a lot more expensive. It's exactly like the level 2, except it is a dedicated line. It's like having a private phone line on your desk. The advantage here is you don't have to compete with other users for the limited number of modems your provider has. Your provider may have 200 or 300 modems, but has 5,000 clients or customers. So during peak times, you can't get on because their modems are all full. With a dedicated line, you've got a direct line from your computer to the internet provider. Of course, this is a lot more expensive. This is for companies that want to have ready internet access. I want to, that basically the first thing you need is the TCP program. Then in addition to the TCP program, you need a program, an individual program for any function that you want to achieve or that you want to do on the internet. If you want to send and receive email, you need an email program. If you want to retrieve files from remote computers, you need what's called an FTP or a file transfer protocol program. If you want to get on the World Wide Web, you need what's called a web browser. If you want to chat in real time on the computer where you type the words, and as soon as you hit the enter key, it appears on the computer everyone who's there, you need what's called an IRC or an Internet Relay Chat program. Keep in mind that so you need one program for any function you want to do. There are some programs out there that will do more than one function, like a web browser. Oftentimes will have an email function as well. But most people prefer to have an email program that they really like. At this point, I want to give you the first FAQ, which is frequently asked question. FAQ 1 that's most often asked by people who are getting into this is there interconnectivity between the different levels? If I have a son at an out-of-state school, and he's got an America Online account, but I'm here on my local internet access provider, can I send him email? Yes, certainly. There is full interconnectivity. Suppose I have an America Online account and you have a CompuServe account. Can you send me email? Yes, absolutely. There's full interconnectivity. You don't have to be on the same system. You don't have to be with the same provider. So you don't have to take that into consideration when you're choosing a provider or you're choosing an online service. The basic functions that you can get, of course, are email. Secondly, probably one of the most popular uses of the internet is the Usenet news group. I don't really know how to describe a Usenet news group other than, let's just imagine for a minute that we have a bulletin board, the old style wood and cork bulletin board up here. And I want to ask a question to anybody who happens to pass by this bulletin board. So I write out my question and I stick it up there on the bulletin board. And anybody walking by that bulletin board can see that. Anybody that sees it and wants to answer can write out an answer and stick it up on the bulletin board underneath my message. And so on and so on. Now you come along and you have a question, so you write one and you set it beside mine so that you start your own little column of messages. Okay? That's what a news group is all about. There are over 14,000 news groups. And you didn't know there were that many topics. Well, there aren't that many topics. There are some news groups that there's some crossover. There's some topics that are covered on more than one news group. So how do you get through this? There are some news groups, of course, that have hundreds and hundreds of messages a day. Well, your news group program will divide your message into fields. There's a to field, and there's a from field, and then there's a subject field. So with your news group program, you're going to log on, and what it's going to do is it's going to give you all of the subjects only. You can sort through the subjects, kick out the ones you don't want, pick the ones you do want, and tell your program to retrieve those messages in those news groups. Your program will send the message through your TCP program to your internet provider, which will then send it to the other, wherever these messages are residing, which will send it back to your provider, then to your TCP program, and then onto your computer so that you can read whatever messages you want to read. News groups are probably the most popular thing being done on the internet right now, but they're also the ones that have the worst reputation because that's where the dirty pictures are. That's where you see the naked people. Now, I don't know if anyone in this room is familiar or not, but for the sake of anyone who might not know it, I want to make sure it's clearly understood. The Time magazine report that came out a couple of months ago, and an NBC Nightline report that came out at the same time, talking about this study from the Carnegie Mellon University. Those reports have now been thoroughly discredited. Don't think that when you log on to news groups, the first thing you're going to see is a naked body. It's actually an extremely rare case, and actually you don't find it unless you're actively looking for it. You have to go looking for it to find it. So it's not a huge red light district. I have gotten more information from news groups in reference to legal authority or legal theories than just about anywhere else. It's a tremendous resource. Now, as far as the stuff about the dirty pictures, I'm going on basically what other people tell me. I don't have any personal knowledge as to where they are. The file transfer protocol, the FTP, is very simple. You can log on to a remote computer that basically does nothing but store files of any and every kind, whether they're text files or computer programs of a special kind or whatever. Give the command, it will download that program straight from that computer to your computer. You have an FTP program? Yeah.
Just one question about viruses. Do we have to worry about that?
Everyone has to worry about viruses. I'll tell you very quickly a couple of things about viruses that I think everybody should know. First of all, about every 6 months, rumors start going around about a thing called a good times virus. They tell you if you ever log on and you see a message and the subject of the message is good times, they tell you delete it and purge your system and do everything. Well, it ignores the fact that a virus cannot be transmitted in a mail message. The only way to transmit a virus is in a program called an executable program. And you'll find that an executable program is one that you have to give a command to execute it and make it work. There is no such thing as a good times virus. That thing's been going around, that rumor's been going around for years and years. But yes, you do. Fortunately, the instances of really vicious viruses are exceedingly rare. They are specifically targeted to certain victims as opposed to being put on the internet in general. And most can be picked up with just any computer you buy anymore that has an antivirus program on it. You can run your antivirus on a regular basis and usually pick up most, if not all of them. So as a practical matter, everyone has to be concerned with viruses. But as a matter of reality, you don't come across them that often. One of the ironic things is when you run your antivirus program, a lot of times it's your antivirus program that is the source of a message that you might have a virus. When you think about it, how is an antivirus program going to know what's a virus? Well, the people that program the antivirus program put samples of viruses for the thing to look at. So when the antivirus program runs and it looks at its own files, there are samples of viruses. So it kicks back at you and says, hey, your antivirus program may have viruses in it. You know? So you do have to, it is a unique situation. There's another thing called Telnet, which is it's more like your local bulletin boards. It's a direct connection from your computer to another. I'm not going to get real technical into that. And then, of course, there are a couple of other practical concerns that I just want to address very briefly. One is the issue of privacy. People are very concerned about privacy online. When you send an email message, how private is it? Well, consider the millions of messages that go every day. It's extremely unlikely that your message is going to be picked by anyone to be looked at, but you should always treat your messages as if they are going to be seen by somebody else. It is possible to encrypt the messages. There is a program out there right now called PGP, Pretty Good Privacy. It is a fantastic system. It involves the use of 2 keys. In other words, there's a public key and there's a private key, and they're computer keys. And if you're ever going to do that, it might be worth your time to look at PGP and Pretty Good Privacy and see if that will work for you. The thing about Pretty Good Privacy, the danger in Pretty Good Privacy is the United States government has classified it as a munition. It is illegal to export it. It is a computer encryption that is illegal to export under federal law. And the inventor of PGP is now facing federal prosecution for exporting his own program. There are encryption methods that can be exported, but you're going to find certain programs out there that the only way you can get them is to prove that you are in the United States, because they contain these encryption methods, and you cannot export those, and the federal people take that very seriously. Now then, for the remainder of the time, I want to talk to you a little bit about the World Wide Web. This is the most exciting part of the internet. This is where people, and I'm gonna hopefully treat you all as if you've got something between the ears. I'm not going to try and lead you directly to this is what you can do with it. I'm going to try basically to show you some examples, and then leave it to you in your own mind to say, well, gee, you know, if that's possible, then I can put it to this application. Because I understand that in this room we have people from all different kinds of professions. And so I just want to take a few minutes to show you what is out there and kind of some of the things that can be done. And keep in mind, I'm giving you about the beginning level idea here, because there are things being done out there that are so phenomenally ahead of what I'm going to show you here today that it would take all day just to show you. The World Wide Web works basically through what's called HTTP, Hypertext Transfer Protocol. What does that mean? What that means basically is that Hypertext Transfer Protocol gives you the ability to log on to another computer and look at something that has been put there by someone else. And in that page, it's called a web page, in that web page there are hypertext links. If you're not familiar with hypertext links, that means you can put your mouse cursor on a certain part of the page, click the button, and it will take you to the thing it's describing. So for instance, in a practical situation, if I go to a server, say, in Hawaii, that has a Hawaii Supreme Court case on it, and I'm reading that case, and it makes reference to a United States Supreme Court case, and the people that create that document put a hypertext link on the Supreme Court case. That Supreme Court case is going to be stored on the campus of the University of Cornell University. Cornell University has all the Supreme Court cases. If you click on that button, it will forward you from Hawaii to Cornell University, log you onto that computer, and bring up that Supreme Court case with one click. That's what hypertext jumps are. And it's not just where you are, it will take you anywhere in the world. That's the basis for the Hypertext Transfer Protocol, or HTTP. Now, how many computer programmers do you need to write a document that will make these jumps? You don't. If you understand how a word processor works, then you can understand how to write an HTTP document. Okay? The basic concept of the word processor is you put certain codes into the document, and then when your word processor reads the document, it interprets the codes and knows how to format. That's all this is. It's a special language called HTML, or Hypertext Markup Language. Now I'm going to try and do this. I don't know how successful I'm going to be at this. I'm not used to. See, I can't even know I don't even know which direction I'm going. There. Okay, I'm gonna try and show you a document that is actually marked up in HTML language. Of course, I don't have get this plugged in, and it looks a little intimidating at first, but okay, this is a document on the World Wide Web. Yeah, there we go. This is a document that is on the World Wide Web. This is actually the page. And I don't know how well you can see this, but if you look, okay, if you look, you can see that there are little things that are enclosed in these little angle bracket type deals. These are the codes that tell the browser, when the browser reads this document, how to interpret this document. Now, actually, these are less confusing than your word processing codes if you're using WordPerfect, because these you can interpret. If I look at a WordPerfect document, there's just going to be a whole lot of little symbols, and I'm not going to. If you look at these, then actually it's a lot easier. It doesn't take very long to learn this language if it's what you want to do, is learn how to do it. Now, what does this look like when I log on and I bring it up on my browser? It'll take just a second for it to load. But this page, you know, I'd made a rookie mistake. Excuse me just a second. And after going to all this trouble, it's not one to. When the browser reads this, it will pick up all of the codes for what the document that is on here, and it will interpret the codes, which consist of not only text but images as well. Images that have been placed on the page the way that the person that authored this wanted to show up. And you're just going to have to trust me, it's an excellent looking page. I do apologize. This is the thing I've been most excited about, and I've lost my TCP program. See, if you don't have your TCP program, you got all kinds of problems. What you would have seen had this loaded up is a page containing the best, what the author considered to be the best images taken by the Hubble Space Telescope. There were actual images taken by the Hubble Space Telescope on this particular page. And without being able to actually go and test this document, it's just not going to work. So I'll tell you what else you're not going to see then, which unfortunately I was really wanting to be able to show you, and wanting to be able to show you what is possible. But the and she's not going to load the TCP program. Some of the things that are possible on web pages, what I had, with all the vast amount of information that is on there, sometimes it's difficult to find what you're looking for. There are specific pages called search engines. You can go to these search engines and you can put in certain keywords, and it will search just about every document that is on the World Wide Web, looking for documents that contain those keywords. And it will bring back hyperlinks to those documents so that you can jump straight to them. It contains forms. You can put forms if you want to order information, or if you want to put information to take surveys or whatever. They can type the information, and by clicking on the link, it will send it directly to you. Of course, I wanted to show you my page, which I'm proudest of, and I'm not going to be able to do that. But the latest thing on my page is what's called the meta tag, which is something that will bring up a page, wait for a designated number of seconds, and then, without the user having to do anything else, will automatically jump to another page that you designate, where it will stay for a designated number of seconds, and then it will automatically jump to another page. I take the person that logs on to our magazine about 4 different pages before it opens up onto the front page of the magazine, and the user can retake control. I know that we're desperately short on time, so I'll conclude what I'm doing here. I appreciate your patience, and I'm more than willing to answer any questions you may have, either publicly or privately.
Marshall, what's your address? We'll look up your page.
Oh, the URL? Okay. The URL is HTTP. Oh, you guys are going to love this if you've never been on the web before. //www.ionet, IONET, .net, N-E-T, / tilde, everybody know what a tilde is? Okay. MDYER. One more slash. Netwatch, NETWATCH dot SHTML. I'm sorry? Between tilde and MDYER? No, it's just tilde MDYER, nothing in between the tilde and the M. And of course, the thing that lets me put counters on my page and everything is to put that SHTML, which leads to a problem because, of course, when I store it on my computer only reads the first 3 letters of the extension. So I have a lot of things on my computer. When my kids come across it, and my dad comes across it, it has SHT for the extension, and he's wondering what I'm up to. Anything else? I appreciate your patience.
Thank you. We did hear your stomachs growling, so Tom Fisher has graciously said that he will present at 1:30 after our presentation at lunch. So what we'll be doing is going over to, what's the building?
It's called the stateroom.
The stateroom. You follow the sidewalk, go to the left underneath the awning, and you'll see where you need to go. and that's where we'll have lunch, and we'll also get a presentation by Jay Sanders.